Folks, I'm John Kooiman. I work for a company called TJ Exteriors, a company that's been in business for 31 years. I'm a part owner of this company, and I've worked in the window business for over 25 years. I've been to probably 14 or 15 different window factories. I've been to a couple different glass plants. I've done seminars before, and it's interesting. At one of the Bloomington seminars I did years ago, they taped it and put it on their cable access channel. And then I started getting calls from people who said, I saw you on TV. I was like, you saw me on TV? Where'd you see me on TV? Well, I saw you on TV, and it turned out they were watching cable access at 4 o'clock in the morning, you know, and so I got to be a movie star, I guess. My 15 seconds of fame. But what I want to do today is try to go through for you and give you information so that you can become smart buyers and purchasers and installers of windows. There's an awful lot to know about windows, and we only have a finite amount of time here to cover it. And I do want to leave time for questions for all of you too, because I know you're going to have some. So if we could kind of hang on to questions till the end, unless you think it's really pertinent for what I'm talking about at the moment, fine, then go ahead and stop me. But I'll try to just work through this for you as we go. The first thing I want to talk about is there's many different kinds of windows, folks. There's wood windows that are clad with metal on the outside to protect them, windows that are clad with vinyl on the outside to protect them. There's windows that have fiberglass exteriors with wood interiors, with composite exteriors, wood interiors. There's all composite windows, there's all vinyl windows, there's all fiberglass windows. Now, what you need to know with all of those products, whether it's wood, vinyl, fiberglass, or composite, there's good, better, and best, okay? There are some very, very good professional grade vinyl windows. They're few and far between, but they're out there. They're typically never sold at a box store or a lumber yard, so you'll have a hard time finding them that way. Vinyl will typically play the bottom feeder place in the market where they're going to be the cheapest in a lot of cases. I would suggest that you stay away from those if you're going to be in a home for any period of time. They might be acceptable if you have a house that's getting flipped or turned, or an apartment building or something like that, although I don't understand that logic either sometimes to put cheap in those kind of buildings, because it's just problems down the road right away for people. Wood windows can have, this is a cutaway of a Marvin window that has a metal exterior to it and a wood interior to it. The problems you can have with wood are rotting, warping, peeling, cracking. If you get condensation and stuff on the window, you can get mold growing and problems like that. So if you're thinking about wood at all, I want you to stay higher end. I don't want you to go out and buy, I'm going to try and stay away from mentioning brand names here today, but you know, I want you to stay away from the lower end stuff, because you're just going to have more and more problems. Now, the reason you want to do a wood window, even though this one is all finished off in white on the inside, the main reason people want to do wood is that it's the beauty of the wood that they're looking for. That's the reason you want to do a wood window. It's the only good reason I can give you, because of all the other problems you can have. But the Marvin windows I sell that have the blinds that are built right into the windows that can pop out, that have the crank out windows that you can spin them all the way around to clean the other side. I mean, there's some really nice features with that window. And I can get it with triple pane glass now, so that I can get much more energy efficient along the edge of the glass, so that I don't have the condensation issues. So there are certain things we'll talk about here today. Condensation is going to be one of them. When it comes to a vinyl product, there are some real big things that you need to be cautious about, okay? This is Soft Light. This is a window out of Ohio that I've been selling this window for quite a few years. And what you want to look at with vinyl is number one, just what the product's made out of. You want a vinyl window that's made out of UI PVC. And people are going to go, whoa, 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 what's all that? Don't get too technical with me. The U stands for unplasticized, the I stands for impact modified. So that when I have a good vinyl window that's unplasticized, it's going to move about 1/64 of an inch on a 48-inch run. So here's 48 inches right there. This tape measure is in increments of a 1/16. 1/64, you know, is quite a bit less than a 1/16. I mean, how good do I have to get, folks? Yes, a fiberglass window, Anderson's composite window, their Fiberglass, is going to move less than my vinyl window. But once again, how good do I have to be? 1/64 of an inch is well within all their tolerances on the weather stripping and everything else on the window. So it's really not a big issue as long as you get something that's unplasticized and impact modified so that when you hit it and stuff, it won't crack and break. This window is also foam filled in the frame and the sashes of the window. It helps strengthen the window, make it stronger, it gives it better energy efficiency, and it cuts down on air infiltration, because now wherever I screw this window in or screw hardware and stuff on here, I don't just have hollow air spaces where the air is able to just run all around this where I puncture holes through it. It stops the airflow dead in its tracks, so that I have a really strong window, more durable, more energy efficient window. You want a vinyl window that's got good thickness to it, anywhere from about 75 to 80 mils, thousandths of an inch thick. You don't want cheap, little thin vinyl. That can have a lot of problems. There's a lot of other features that go into windows that we can talk about, but this is really a nice maintenance-free product. And vinyl windows have come a long way since the first and second generation. These third generation windows are looking a lot better. Fiberglass, if we did a fiberglass window, you'll have to excuse me here, my Marvin Integrity window took a fall and got broken, the glass. This is all fiberglass. And to make fiberglass, you pultrude it. So instead of vinyl, where you push vinyl, which is heated at about 400, 500 degrees and shoved through a mold like Play-Doh, you know, and it comes out and makes the lineals for the windows and you put it together. Fiberglass is pultruded, where you pull these glass fibers through a heated die, and it's mixed with resin, and you end up with your shapes here. Then it has to get finished off and painted. That's a much more expensive process. So typically, fiberglass is going to be one of your most expensive products to use. Now, why would you want a fiberglass window? Fiberglass is extremely durable. It's very strong. It's actually a structural material. It could be used structurally in anything you work with. It doesn't expand and contract hardly at all. It's very insensitive to heat and cold and to contraction and expansion, and holds up really well in sunlight. Okay? So the reason you'd want to do fiberglass is that it's very strong, very durable. But it's not going to make things any more energy efficient for you, folks. 80% of our heat loss is through the glass in a window. 15% of our heat loss is through air infiltration, and another 5% of our heat loss is through conduction through the frame. So it doesn't really make that much difference what frame material I'm using in terms of the energy efficiency of the window. So this is for durability. It's not that it's going to make it any more energy efficient or anything like that. Okay? Nice stuff. Now, I don't have a composite material window that I can show you. I do have pieces of, well, I thought I had a piece here. Well, maybe I don't. Oh yeah, here we go. So here's a piece of Anderson Renewal's FiberX window, and if there's an Anderson person in here, you're going to have to excuse me, because I'm going to talk about your window even though I don't sell it, because they make, install, and do that window themselves in the Twin Cities market. So they're the only ones who can sell it to you. It's made out of what they call FiberX. Fiberglass is a composite material that's 60% vinyl, 25% sawdust, and 15% thermoplastic resin that hold it all together. Expands and contracts very little, very strong, durable. It is pretty brittle and can crack and break, but once again, it's a pretty good material to make a window out of. I'll give it that, okay? The original engineers wanted to put a 10% fiberglass in it to make it stronger, but they got shot down. You'll also find a few windows on the market that are made out of cellular PVC. That's where you have a vinyl that's solid, you know, all the way through. So they're solid frames. You'll see very little of it. There's really not much difference doing this versus a vinyl window, except that it's a little stronger. That's all. All right, so any questions so far on the different kinds of windows out there? Anybody got a question about what they, okay? Yeah.
Talk about the durability of the fiberglass.
Yep.
And how about the high-end vinyl that you're talking about? Are they comfortable with that durability? Or?
Oh yeah, they come with lifetime warranties that are one-time transferable to a new owner. The new generation vinyls are going to last a long, long time. And when I say a long, long time, I mean 50 years in a home. And I've got windows that I put in homes 20 years ago with vinyl that have no problems at all. But I can show you vinyl windows that people have put in 10 years ago that are absolute junk, that we're replacing in townhomes and stuff that some of the big builders used, that those companies are completely out of business now and gone. You know, a lot of that wasn't just the vinyl was bad, it's that the balance systems, the hardware, the glass packs, just the whole way they manufactured the window was very, very cheap. So like I said, there's good, better, and best, and that's being nice about it, because some of that stuff is absolute junk and is doing nothing but playing the price game.
We bought a house in 07, and it's got vinyl windows in it, but I don't know who the manufacturer of those windows was.
Oh boy, and you don't know who the builder was or any?
The house was built in 65.
Oh, okay.
07, so we've got vinyl windows. So far we've had 2 windows seals fail.
And seal failure, we're going to talk about that. That has to do with the glass and the spacer system in them, and you don't have to replace your window if that's happened. You just need to replace the glass. And I've got a guy you can call, and there's other places in town who will just come out and replace glass for you. Seal failure is not a failure, complete failure of the window. It's just that your glass is done. And we'll go through spacer systems and talk about that. Yes?
On the foam for vinyl, does the foam have a tendency to deteriorate with time or not?
Depends on how you foam, okay? This is all done with, it's urethane foam that's pumped into here, and you ought to see this at the factory. It's the messiest place in the factory. They got these big long lineals of this material that have been extruded by a vinyl manufacturer, an extruder, and they're going to then squirt the foam in there. And this stuff will expand. It has to sit for 2 weeks before they can use it, because it'll expand out that far out by the time it's done. So it's going to expand and cure inside here and attach itself to the walls. Now, there was a company out on the East Coast, you won't see this window in our area, that used a foam that over time deteriorated and fell apart. And they got caught by somebody replacing some windows later down the line and had a problem, and they broke the thing open and noticed that it all deteriorated, okay? It was a really cheap foam that they were using, and it did deteriorate over time. Also, the foam sticks that people stuff in here that doesn't fill the whole area, it still allows air to infiltrate all over the place, doesn't add any rigidity and strength to the product. So yes, what foam goes in there is important, and the warranty behind it is something you should certainly look at. Yeah. Yeah.
I got one that I'm looking for that goes in my house, and they actually put wood in there instead of foam.
Okay.
Is that better, worse?
Not a big fan. If you look at that window, and I know what window you're talking about, we don't need to name names in here, that's not what I'm here for. If you took that wood out of that window, It would just kind of be a boxed up frame that doesn't have a lot of I-beam box construction in it, so it needs that wood in there for strength. But now think of it. That window, you're going to have places where you're going to screw that window in when you install it through the frame and stuff. You're going to attach hardware and stuff where you're screwing into it. Now you're allowing air to get in there. Well, with air, you can have moisture. You got a maintenance-free material, now you've got wood inside of it. Just like the question about the foam, and is my foam going to last? Well, is my wood going to last, over time? I'm not going to beat up on it too bad. I mean, it's an okay window, but it wouldn't be my choice just because I'm mixing two materials that to me probably don't need to be mixed and shouldn't be mixed. And then without that in there, it wouldn't be such a good window. They really need that for the strength in there. All right, I'm going to move on here because we're going to get stuck here and run out of all our time just talking about this. So next thing I want to talk about is how you install windows. And this is important. There's a full frame replacement of windows and there's an insert replacement of windows, and there's some things that are in between with that too. A full frame replacement is where I come into your house and on the inside I've got some nice jambs with casings on the inside. When I do a full frame replacement, I'm taking all that off. All that's coming off. Then I'm going to the outside of your window. And whatever trim happens to be on the outside, whether it's a 2-inch brick mold or some other trim, that's all coming off. And then I'm going to take the whole window out all the way back to the studs in the wall, the header up above, and the sill plate down below. And I'm going to start completely over. And I'm going to do something called a sill pan on the bottom of the window, which would typically be a piece of this flex wrap stuff that comes down 6 inches down the wall in front, comes all the way back in on the sill, wraps up 6 inches on the side. This is made out of a black, really gooey material, that adheres to everything. Then I'm going to put the window in with a nailing flange on the side. So I'm going to have a little piece here that goes on. So here's the outside of the window. Now I got my nailing flange. That's going to nail that window in around the window and hold it in place to the studs. Then I'm going to take another piece of 4-inch wrap and cover my wrap that came up from here, and I'm going to go up like this, and then across the top of the window I'm going to put a drip cap and more tape going across. Now I'm ready to bring my trim and my siding back. All right? How am I going to do that, folks, if I got a brick opening? How am I going to do that if I got steel siding that's covering up my nailing flange here? The siding's coming right up and covering the flange of my old window. Or I got stucco. It's a big issue. What you'll see a lot of companies do is come in, take a Sawzall, cut that flange off, pull the window out, put a new window in within a 1/4 of an inch, put a little flashing piece called a Z-strip, which is pretty worthless, and then caulk it and call that good. Seriously. Once again, I'm not going to mention names, but they're the big guys out there doing this stuff. Now with vinyl siding, my company will always loosen the vinyl siding on the window and do what we need to do and then bring it back and put it in place. With steel siding, sometimes we'll take steel off the house to get it done right and then put it back up. With stucco, sometimes we'll cut 2 inches around the window to get at that flange, get our tape, and be able to do all the things we need to do to get it right. With brick, we're really, really kind of stuck. We've almost got to use a Z-strip, a little flashing piece in the caulk. We use a rope piece on the inside to try and seal it off. It's made out of a neoprene type material. We foam from this nailing flange all the way back in on the wall, to try and fill that and insulate that whole area in there. But that's what you're up against when you're doing a full frame replacement. Now an insert replacement is where I leave the existing frame of the old window in the wall, and I'm inserting a new window within that old frame. Now, I don't have to mess with siding when I do that. I don't have to mess with your existing trim typically on the inside. I don't have to worry about paint lines or tile on the inside. But there's some downsides to an insert. The first one is I'm putting a window inside of another window, so I'm going to lose glass space. Okay, and it typically ends up running anywhere from about 3/4 of an inch all the way up to 2 inches all the way around the sides of the window. And it can get quite noticeable. So your sales guys should be knowledgeable enough to show you where their window's going to come out on your existing glass now and show you what you're going to lose. The second downside is if you got a bunch of rot in your window, if I come out to your house and I push my finger down on that sill and I go right down into it, you need to pull the whole window out. You need to get that whole sill replaced. If you've got a lot of rotten stuff, you need the full frame replacement. You don't need an insert where it's half a job, okay? It's only by doing a full frame that I get all the way back, get to see everything. In today's world, folks, we're starting to find a lot of rot below windows. And it's on newer homes in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, where sheeting, studs, rot. Now, we're a general contractor that specializes in exterior remodeling, so this is not a problem for us. If we have to dig deep, we'll do it. But a lot of companies are just kind of window jockeys that don't get very far. Even somebody like Anderson Renewal, they will not alter an opening for you. They will not make a new opening for you. You've got to call a carpenter, have that done, then they'll come out and do windows. They won't do anything but a simple window install. So, you need to be looking at some point at who's doing this too and the advice you're getting. Any questions about the two kinds of install?
I've got one, John.
Yeah.
Is there an energy efficiency difference between doing a full frame replacement versus a insert?
Typically the answer to that is no, but there's one caveat to that. If the old window wasn't insulated properly around it in the first place, most people who are doing inserts are not digging deep enough to check that and see that. That would mean you'd have to pull off either trim on the inside or the outside to see that. And if they're not doing that and that old window didn't have proper insulation around it, you could still get a lot of air leakage around the window.
So if you have air leakage today, you'd probably want to go full frame?
Yes, but before I make that judgment, I might pull a few casings off and have a look back behind there. Because where you think you might be getting air infiltration from may not actually be from, the insulation around the window. You'd almost need to really feel really cold on the wall and maybe see some frost around those casings to know that that's not done. I carry a heat gun around, so I can figure it out real quick what some of your problems are with the window. So, all right, so now I want to get into some of the energy efficiency stuff with windows. And look, we're already almost a half an hour into this and got another 15 minutes. We're going to run out of time. So, oh, there was a pen here. What happened to that? Thank you. I need all the help I can get. Everybody has probably heard about Energy Star, right? Okay. Basically out there today, folks, if you don't buy a window that's Energy Starred, you probably have a pretty lousy window. And Energy Star was set up, I don't know, around 2000 or something. Here's an Energy Star sticker, folks. If you've got an Energy Starred window, it's got to have one of these on the window when it's installed. Okay? Now, the beauty of Energy Star and having this NFRC testing, National Fenestration Rating Council testing, is that it's third-party independent testing. It's not propaganda from the window companies. It's not sales guys just telling you what you want to hear, okay? This can't be fudged. They're going to take windows right out of a factory. They're going to bring them to their facilities. They're going to test them. Now, the most important thing you need to look at on an Energy Star sticker and in your process of trying to find good windows, you better see this. If they won't show you this, you need to walk away. The most important thing is this overall U factor. Here, I'll pass a few of these around so you can see them. I got a bunch. So here. Make sure I get these back because some of them are hard to come by. Here, if you could pass one over to them. Okay. All right, so the most important thing is that one that's in the upper left-hand corner, which is called the U factor. Okay, the U factor is the overall energy rating on the window. The lower that number, the better. Okay, not the higher. The lower the number, the better. Energy Star this year, there's a new Energy Star rating for this year that is 0.27. Okay? My Marvin window that I sell, the best energy rating I can get with that window is 0.29. My Marvin window does not meet the minimum energy standard for Energy Star anymore. Now, they are getting by with it being what it is because one of these other figures on here, the solar heat gain coefficient, which is something I can talk about, but I don't think we're going to have time here today. This is the amount of infrared heat, the heat from the sun, that it allows into the house. And that's my phone going, you guys. Forgot to turn it off. We'll just get rid of that. The solar heat gain coefficient, if you're below 0.30, they still allow you at 0.29 to be called Energy Star if your solar heat gain coefficient is below 3.0. But it's kind of a fudge factor thing, you guys, and it's a little bit disingenuous as to what they're doing. Anderson, Marvin, and Pella all have the same problem. The best they do is 0.29. Now, I don't know what all the stickers are floating around, but I've got windows that'll go all the way down to 0.14 for a U factor, almost half of what Energy Star is, but that's when I'm getting into triple pane glass, folks. And instead of argon gas in between the panes, I'm using Krypton and keeping Superman out of your house. Okay? So there's a lot of things I can do with glass to make it more energy efficient. And as I told you earlier, 80% of our heat loss in a window is through the glass. So what I do with glass is going to have a big effect on the energy efficiency of my window. Now here's 2 panes of glass right here, and my Marvin's got 2. Both companies now will do triple pane in their window. Now let me tell you what they've done with glass that makes it so much better today than it used to be before. Instead of using just clear glass like most of the windows before 1995, they're putting low emissivity coatings on the glass. And let me explain that to you. It's not that complicated. If I took a piece of tin foil and put it between 2 panes of glass, I bet everybody in that place here could understand that in the summertime that tin foil would reflect heat away from your house and keep you cooler. And in the wintertime, the infrared heat from your body and furnace would be reflected back in and keep you warmer, okay? Well, now obviously if we put tin foil in there, we couldn't see through the window, but these smarty pants scientists came up with these microscopic coatings of metal oxide, zinc oxide, tin oxide, silver oxide, titanium dioxide, that reflect infrared heat, that reflect ultraviolets depending on what metal we're using, but yet still let most of the visible light through because this stuff is just molecules thick. Now, these coatings have gotten very sophisticated where there's anywhere from 10 to 14 different layers to them now that are all molecule thick stuff that they're doing and have really helped make the energy efficiency better in the windows. In conjunction with that, they are now no longer just leaving regular air in here, but they're filling that window with argon gas, which is 7 times heavier than regular air. So it acts like a dense blanket in there that slows down the conduction of heat or cold through here. Those low emissivity coatings are dealing with radiated heat loss, just photons of energy, boom, wanting to go through the glass. The argon gas deals with the conduction of heat through here. So it's like a warm blanket in there. So now think about this for a minute. If I add a third pane of glass, now I got 2 dead air spaces in there versus 1, 2 chambers the colder heat has to try to get through with these dense gases in. And like I mentioned earlier, if you don't like argon, I can get you krypton, which is 10 times heavier again than argon and works even better, but it's more expensive. Okay? In Minnesota, the absolute best place to have your low emissivity coatings would be, they always put them in the inside, on the inside piece. They don't want it exposed where it can get scratched or messed up in any way. They'll put it in here, but the best place for it would be on the inside of the inside pane, because we have many more heating days than we have cooling days. So we'd want the infrared heat from the house reflected back right away before it can get in here and warm this up and re-radiate it to the outside. But most glass companies with 2 panes always put it to the outside. That's great south of the Mason-Dixon line, you guys, where you have more cooling than heating. Dallas, Texas, that's where you want it. Why do they do that then in Minnesota? Well, in the wintertime, you never feel the heat going out. You just feel a cold house. In the summertime, though, you can feel that heat coming in, and it'll chase you away from a patio door or a dining room table or wherever you've got a lot of solar heat gain coming in. So that they want to get rid of that so that you don't feel that. Also, the other problem is that that heat, when it comes through that glass, if you had it on the inside and you let that heat come in here, you can get up to 160 degrees in between these panes, and that's going to create a lot of seal failure where you get moisture and dirt between the panes. So let's talk about spacers, because this is important. In between the panes of glass, what's holding it apart can be very, very important to the overall energy efficiency of your window. So if you have an old-fashioned window that has an aluminum spacer in it, aluminum, just like this stainless steel spacer, will track a lot of heat and cold across it, so the cold from the outside comes right across to the inside, creates a cold edge, creates condensation, because warm air comes over, gets cooled, cold air can't hold as much moisture as warm, boom, puts it right there on the edge, rot, mold, all the problems, all the issues. These metal spacers too don't, expand and contract, but they don't always come back to the same place and shape, and seals start breaking on them. My favorite spacer in a window is the one that's on this soft light window. It's called Super Spacer. It's a thermoset silicone polymer. In other words, thermoset means it has memory and it always comes back to its shape. And the silicone is almost the same expansion and contraction rate as glass, so it moves perfectly with the glass. It is sealed on both sides and then backfilled underneath with a secondary seal, so that this spacer, along with my Cardinal XL stainless steel spacer, which is in my Marvin window, are going to be the most long-lived spacer systems that are going to have the least amount of trouble. And this one's going to stay 15 degrees warmer on the edge than any of my metal spacer things. So once I get into this spacer, even with 2 panes of glass, I get rid of a lot of condensation. When I go triple pane, the only time you'll have a problem is when you're boiling spaghetti by the kitchen window, or you're taking a big steamy shower and got it all steamed up in the bathroom. I can't help you out there. You better get the fan going, And so spacer systems are very, very important in windows. The 2 best are this spacer right here. Now there's some copycat stuff. Here's the Duralite spacer. This is the guys who made Swiggle that had a lot of failure rate with that. This is a neoprene spacer that's got a plastic swiggle in it and stuff. This can distort and get out of shape and have seal failure problems after a period of time, but it is very energy efficient because it doesn't have metal in it. So unfortunately, I know all these things, you guys don't. That's why we're doing this today, but I know this is going to be maybe hard to digest all of this information with that. Okay, now, does anybody have any questions at this point? Oh, we do. We got about 7 minutes left. Any questions about glass, spacers?
Stainless steel spacer is good.
Yeah, that's the Cardinal XL spacers. Typically when somebody's doing stainless, although there are intercept spacers that are stainless too, they're not as good as super. You know, they're not going to stay nearly as warm because they're metal, but they are a very durable spacer. Cardinal XL. They're making all the glass for Marvin, Anderson, Pella, and a whole lot of other people. The ones I don't like, you know, is your old-fashioned aluminum. They're junk, but hardly anybody's using them. You'll find a lot of vinyl guys, though, still using the intercept spacer. It's a galvanized steel spacer that is U-shaped. We see a lot of seal failure with this, and once again, the energy efficiency isn't that great with it. With glass, too, you know, I can get a lot of different coatings for different situations. I can get rid of 99.8% all the UVA and B rays that cause fading and stuff. So I can save your furniture, your drapes, your flooring from getting all wrecked and messed up. Okay? I'm just going to hold this right here. Obviously, when you want to clean a window, most of the double hungs today have nice tilt-in features. My Marvin window, you can crank that thing out on the casement window and actually flip it all the way around and wash it and put it back. If you want to join the real modern world, I can get you the new self-cleaning glass. Who'd like that? You think I'm full of it, huh? Self-cleaning glass is actually 2 layers on the exterior of the glass. On the outside, a layer of titanium dioxide that reacts to sunlight, the UV rays from sunlight, so it works on the cloudiest days. UV rays bounce on the north, south, east, west sides of the house, activates the surface and breaks down organic material, dirt, matter, and stuff. And then the other coating that's on it is a silicone dioxide, which makes the glass hydrophilic so that when it gets wet, the water sheets across the whole pane instead of streaking and beading like regular glass. So this dirt that's been degraded is now loosened on the surface. When it rains, it takes all that off. It dries without any streaking and beading. Okay, 10 years ago when this came out, I did 6 windows in my house. I'm a pretty big skeptic about some of this stuff. They are my cleanest windows in the house, but I would never tell you you're never going to have to clean them. Okay? You might want to do that. And when you do, they're really easy to clean. They clean a lot easier, too, than regular windows. It'll add about $50 to the cost of your window. Now, with double hungs, there are balance systems that go in here. I would tell you to try and stay away from the old balance systems. That spiral balance like that's a piece of junk. You can get into the rope and pulley stuff. It's not that bad. It's in a lot of windows, but there's a lot of mechanical stuff to go wrong with it. I actually like the new tongue springs. A lot less to go wrong with these. This is just a normal vinyl window. Here's the one out of the soft light window. You can see how much thicker it is. You know, it makes a huge difference in terms of its durability and how it lasts in the window. I should also mention with this window, besides the foam filling in there, there's reinforcing that's put in it. A lot of windows will use steel and aluminum, very conductive. This is a Kevlar material. They call it their K-beam that is stronger than steel, less conductive than fiberglass, that goes through these frame members, stiffens this window up so that it has a design pressure rating of DP65, which means 195 mile an hour winds before it'll blow in a storm. So it's a very strong, very durable window, and we haven't gotten into the independent testing for air infiltration, water infiltration, or design pressure that's out there. Those are some other things you could look into that give you a good idea of how well the window's made. So the trouble with a lot of vinyl windows is that they're kind of weak. This really stiffens up, strengthens that window so that you have a much better product. Casement windows, it's all the hardware and stuff with the windows that's you know, really important there. If you're putting in triple pane glass in a casement window, you're going to want the maximum strength oversized hardware because you've got a lot of weight in that window that just wants to go out and down. If you don't have the proper hardware, it's going to sag, and then you got the old crankouts that don't want to come in, and you got to go to the outside to push them in, or just forget about it and let it leak a lot of air. Yeah.
What about sliders?
Slider windows are your most energy inefficient windows, and their problem is air infiltration rate. So you should really be looking at the air infiltration rate on a window. Now here's the problem. You're going to find a huge bunch of the sales guys that are out there in the marketplace don't even know what the air infiltration rate is on their windows, okay? It's kind of ridiculous. But where you fail the test on air infiltration is at 0.30, okay? This is air infiltration. Now, remember with Energy Star, this is all done by the NFRC, National Fenestration Rating Council, independently testing. For air infiltration, it's AMA, American Architectural Manufacturing Association. Up here, this is all mandatory. Got to do it if you want to be Energy Starred. This is voluntary, okay? Which is a real pain because number one, not everybody has to do it. Number two, you can do your own testing and come up with your own bogus figures. But if something's AAMA tested in their gold label program, they also have a silver label program that's absolutely worthless. The gold label program is where they can come in once every 6 months, pull windows right off the line and test them to their protocol. And it's a true test. The silver label program is where if you just follow their protocol, you can doctor your window in any way you want, test it yourself, and have a little disclaimer at the end of the 10-page test report that says this may not actually be a window that you would buy and have installed in your home. Okay? So if it's not gold labeled, it's pretty worthless. Now, this particular window right here with their casements, double hungs, and sliders are at 0.02 cubic feet per minute, feet squared. Okay, so what does that mean to you, the homeowner? That's about 1.5 pop cans of air coming through that window every minute. Most slider windows typically run between 0.15 and 0.30. That's like 2 gallons of air plus coming through the window every minute versus 1.5 pop cans. So you need to look at air infiltration rates with your slider, and you better make sure it's independent third-party testing and not a bunch of baloney that somebody's given you. And it's most sliders are real leaky through the drain planes that have to get the water out of the tracks and out of the windows, and then where they meet up, because they have to be in there sloppy to lift them up and out for cleaning. Yeah.
And that's what we have now, our sliders. Very old. They were Anderson's years back in '79.
Yep.
Can we put something else in there?
You can, but when you get into the bedrooms, we now have to deal with egress laws that require us to have a certain amount of open window space for a fire person to get in with a backpack on. It's not so much for you to get out, it's for the fire person to get in with the backpack. And most fire people I've talked to is, we'll get in your house. We don't care. But when I change a window from a slider to anything else, I'm no longer grandfathered in with what you've got in there, and it probably not meeting the new egress code. So if I change it, I now must meet egress. So maybe the only thing that would fit in there that might make it would be a casement window that cranks out all the way. That might make it. And casements are your most energy efficient windows when they're operating right. Double hungs next, sliders are your last.
We have sliders, I really like them. Those are the ones, yeah.
Yep. Push them back and forth, lift them out for cleaning. I can take them right over to the sink, clean them up, bring them back, put them in. Once again, you just need to be looking at what you're buying. You really need to, with them, it's some specific things that you're looking at in those windows to make sure you've got a good deal. Now, we're over our time, but the next person doesn't come in till 12, so I'm going to move some stuff away. I'll take questions. I've got business cards here. We've got a booth downstairs right along the theater section down at the last end. You know, all this has been is kind of a cursory kind of go over to kind of give you guys at least some hints about where you need to go. I can pass out cards if you want a card, and I'd be happy to have any kind of conversation with you. As I said, I am the owner of my company, and so I'm the guy who comes out, I'm the guy who does all the proposals, and I'm the one who runs the job. There you go.
Thank you.
Boy, you guys are burning me up. Hang on, I think I got some more someplace like right here. And John is my other sales guy. He's down at my booth. So he's down there right away. It'll take me a few minutes to get down there if you want to talk to me. All right, any other questions or anything, concerns? Yeah.
I don't know if I misunderstood you, but if I have awning windows in a bedroom, and if you replace those with vinyl awning windows,
I'm grandfathered in.
grandfathered in, they don't have to be upgraded to egress windows.
Only if I alter the opening or change to a different type of window am I not. Now, we got to be careful about what I say here, because if I get into St. Paul, they got a fire marshal in St. Paul who has decided to interpret the building code in his own way, and you'll probably have to get a variance in St. Cloud or in St. Paul.
I live in St. Cloud.
You live in St. Cloud? I grew up in St. Cloud, so that's the slip for me. Yeah, I lived there for 25 years. Anything else? Okay, I've got more windows down at the booth and stuff for you to look at if you want to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.